All praise, all glory, all honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. So it's a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. Today's lesson, brothers and sisters, will be dealing with the parable of the vineyard. You know, there are various parables within the Bible, and these parables have deeper messages within them, embedded within them. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to unpack this particular parable, which again is the parable of the vineyard. And we want to start off in the gospel according to Matthew. And here we read about this vineyard. This is Matthew, the 21st chapter, and we'll pick it up at verse 33. This is Matthew chapter 21 and verse 33. It reads, "Hear another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard and hedged it round about, and digged a winepress in it, and built a tower, and let it out to husbandmen, and went into a far country." Okay, so you have a vineyard, and here you have this winepress, this tower, and this vineyard was lent out to, or leased out to farmers, which is what a husbandman is. And then the one that lent it out went away. And it says, and when the time of the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the husbandmen that they might receive of the fruits of it. So when it's time to harvest, so to speak, take some of the fruits, he sends his servants to get something from that vineyard. Verse 35, it says, and the husbandman took his servants and beat one and killed another and stoned another. So he's supposed to be getting something out of this. The one that lent it out is supposed to be getting something out of this vineyard. He sends his servants to go get it. And when the servants come, the husbandman beat them. It says they beat one. They took his servants and beat one and killed another and stoned another. Verse 36, again, he sent other servants more than the first, and they did unto them likewise. So the one who lent it out continued to send servants to reap of the fruits of this vineyard, and they were killed. It says, but last of all, he sent unto them his son, saying, they will reverence my son. So he says, you know what, I'm not going to send a servant, I'm going to send my son unto them. And let's see what the husband's response was. This is verse 38. It says, but when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, this is the heir. This is the one that has the inheritance. Come, let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance. And they caught him and cast him out of the vineyard and slew him. So they caught him, captured him, took him out. This son took him outside of the vineyard, and there they killed him. It says, the Lord thereof of the vineyard cometh, what will he do unto the husbandman? They say unto him, he will miserably destroy those wicked men, and will let out his vineyard unto other husbandmen, which shall render him the fruits in their seasons. Okay, so now let's understand this parable, because he says in verse 33, he says, here another parable, there was a certain householder which planted a vineyard and hedged it round about, and digged a winepress in it, and built a tower, and let it out to husbandmen. So we want to find out what is this tower, okay? What is the vineyard and what is the tower? So let's go to Psalms, the 80th division. Psalms 80, and we'll pick it up at verse 1. Psalms 80 and verse 1. The psalmist writes, give ear, O shepherd of Israel, thou that leadest Joseph like a flock, thou that dwellest between the cherubim, shine forth. So he's telling God to to give ear or to listen. Then he says something in verse 8. He says, thou hast brought a vine out of Egypt. Thou hast cast out the heathen and planted it. So what is this vine that came out of Egypt? The vine that came out of Egypt was none other than the children of Israel. It says, thou prepares room before it, and didst cause it to take deep root, and it filled the land. So these people went in with 70 souls. You had the nation that was established by one man, 4 wives that had 12 sons. These made up 12 tribes. And anyway, they went in, the 70 souls went in. Joseph was there already. They went in and they grew, and ultimately he took them out of Egypt with a mighty hand, with stretched out arm, and with fury poured out, and brought them into the promised land. And this was foretold in the days of Abraham. But then it says, thou preparest room before it, and didst cause it to take deep root, and it filled the land. The hills were covered with the shadow of it, and the boughs thereof were like the goodly cedars. So now you have this vine. And let's go to Psalms, the 18th chapter, because we heard that there was a tower there. This is Psalms, the 18th chapter. So let's find out what this tower is. This is Psalms 18, and we'll pick it up in verse 1. Here David writes, I will love thee, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation and my high tower. Understand, the tower within the midst of this vineyard, or in the midst of these people, was none other than God. He was literally amongst the people. No other time in the course of human history do you have a record of God dwelling directly with the people. But that's what happened here. Let's go to Job. Let's go to the book of Job. Because it said also that there was a hedge. A hedge is protection. This is Job 1, and we'll pick it up at verse 6. Well, actually, let's pick it up at verse 9. Okay, because here the sons of God are people for God, and Satan comes amongst them, and the Lord puts forth the proposition. He says, hast thou considered my servant Job? Okay. He said, where you been first? He said, from going to and fro on the earth and walking up and down in it. Then he asked him, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feared God and escheweth evil? Have you considered this one? And he says in verse 9, Satan answered the Lord and said, doth Job fear God for nothing? In other words, is he serving you for nothing? Listen to what he says. He said, hast not thou made an hedge about him? See, the vineyard had an hedge around it. What is this hedge? It says, thou hast made an hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side. Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. So what is that? He's referring, in context, we understand that he's talking about a hedge as protection. So you have a people that were planted in a land, that they had a strong high tower, which was none other than God himself dwelling amongst them, and he put a hedge about them. You had 7 nations greater and mightier than them that they cast out of the land to take the land. The people around them trembled for fear of them because God was with them. See, it don't matter about how many people you have. It don't matter how sharp your weapons may be. It don't matter the strategy. When God is on your side, you cannot be defeated. And when he is protecting you, and when he has his shield around you, you are protected. Indeed, it doesn't matter. He'll prepare a table for you in the midst of your enemies. He'll protect you. It doesn't matter the circumstance. And that's the situation that Israel was in. Let's go to Exodus, the 3rd chapter. Because in Exodus, the 3rd chapter, we want to find out where he planted this vineyard or this vine. This is Exodus, the 3rd chapter. We'll pick it up at verse 7. It says, and the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt. Now, I talked about him taking that vine out of Egypt, right? In the Psalms 80. And it says, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So he gave ear to the cries of a suffering people, a nation in waiting. Verse 8, it says, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. So what land was this that they were planted in? The place they were planted. He said, I'm going to bring them into the land of the Canaanites. And he named these other nations. This is the land of Canaan. Let's go to Psalms, the 105th division. We want to find out why he planted this vineyard. This is Psalms 105. We want to pick it up in verse 42. Psalms 105 and verse 42. Why did he plant this vine? It reads, for he remembered his holy promise and Abraham his servant. And he brought forth his people with joy and his chosen with gladness. The Israelites, who are black people that have been scattered, a specific black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the earth at this point, these are the people that he brought out of Egypt into the land of Canaan. You had one black people dwelling amongst another. So it says, and he brought forth his people with joy and his chosen with gladness and gave them the lands of the heathen. Who are the heathen? The lands of the heathen are the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, all these nations, he gave them their land. The heathen is simply the one that does not know God. But God was dwelling amongst this people. He planted this people. So it says, and gave them the lands of the heathen, and they inherited the labor of the people. What does it mean that they inherited the labor of the people? Simply put, brothers and sisters, the people did all the work. The people that were there, those nations that were there, did all the work. When you have a nation, when you have a group of people, you make houses, you make structures, you dig wells, you create infrastructure. They did all those things, and what they had to leave. See, the labor was all, they laid the labor for another people to come in. So it says, it gave them the lands of the heathen, and they inherited the labor of the people. It says, and he tells you why he planted this vine. It says that they might observe his statutes and keep his laws. Praise ye the Lord. He did it so that these people would be obedient to him and bring forth fruit. Not literal fruit, but you talk about a fruit in which is referring to a righteous people. That's what they were supposed to be bringing forth, righteousness, right? You're talking about a kingdom of priests and holy nation who were given the law, statutes, the commandments, the ordinances, the judgments of God. No other people have that record. Let's go to Isaiah, because we want to find out again what was expected. Isaiah expounds upon the expectations that God had of this people. This is Isaiah, the 5th chapter. And here in the 5th chapter, Isaiah tells us of the Lord's vineyard. Same vineyard we were reading about in Matthew, the 21st chapter. But this is Isaiah, the 5th chapter and verse 1. It reads, now will I sing to my well-beloved the song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved had the vineyard in a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it and gathered out the stones thereof and planted it with the choicest vine and built a tower in the midst of it and also made a wine press thereof. This should sound familiar. And he looked that it should bring forth grapes. He's looking for fruit. And it says something, and it brought forth wild grapes. Grapes that were not good. You see, he gave, if you think about what God gave Israel, again, you have the creator of the world coming directly to a people, telling them specifically in their face what they're supposed to do, giving them laws to live by, toppling the greatest nation on the planet at that time, casting out all these heathen, giving them a land and making a covenant with the people. Gave them everything that they would need. If we only had the mind to adhere to the Torah or to the instruction of God, we would be in a much better position. We would have peace. Other nations would look at us in awe and in envy and say, this is a wise and understanding people. He says he did all these things, and he looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes. It says, and now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, I pray you, betwixt me and my vineyard. So he says, judge, make a judgment between me and my vineyard. He said, what could I have done more to my vineyard that I have not done in it? God did everything for us. Everything that you would need to be prosperous, but only if we had the mindset. But as he said to Moses, this is a stiff-necked, hard-headed people. He said, wherefore, when I looked at it to bring forth grapes, brought it forth wild grapes. And now go to, I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up, and break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down. So the hedge that protected Job, Satan proposed, he said, but put forth now thine hand. In other words, take your hedge away, take your protection away. And when the Lord took his protection away from Job, Job was afflicted. Job lost all of his kids. Job lost his health. Job lost his wealth. He sat in the ashes and sprinkled dust and rent his clothes and said, naked, I came into this world, and naked shall I return hither. But then he said something. He said, blessed be the name of the Lord. He was a righteous man that the Lord took his hedge from, and it meant that he would face tumultuous times, heartache and pain. Job really understood something about the human condition, which is often a wretched condition up until the time that man dies. But it wasn't for anything that he did. But Israel brought forth wild grapes when it should have brought forth good grapes. And so he said, so in other words, Israel was disobedient to God. So what did God do? He said, okay, you don't want to obey me. You don't want to adhere to the law, statutes, and the commandments that I have given you. And understand the servants that he sent. He sent them he sent them B-types. He sent them early. He sent his prophets to the people to warn them of the impending judgment. And what did they do? They killed Zechariah. They imprisoned and smote Jeremiah. They would imprison, they would persecute his servants. When coming in the spirit of Elijah, John the Baptist, what did they do? Decapitation. So he came, he suffered persecution. But the ones that came directly to Israel in the old days, trying to lead them back to God, they wouldn't listen. There are times, even Jeremiah, he came to the people, he asked them, what does the Lord say we should do? He told them what to do, and you know what they told him? They say, man, he ain't spoke to you, we ain't doing that. They basically rejected him after they asked him what thus saith the Lord. So it says in verse 6, and I will lay it waste, talking about his vineyard. It shall not be pruned nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. Then he tells you who the vineyard is referring to. He said, for the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. So when we're talking about the vineyard, we're talking about a nation who rebelled against God. It says in the men of Judah, his pleasant plant, and he looked for judgment, but behold oppression, for righteousness, but behold a cry. So what should have been brought forth was not brought forth. The righteousness that should have been was not. And therefore, destruction came upon the people. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. And here in Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, again, we find why he expected judgment and righteousness. This is Deuteronomy 4 and verse 1. Deuteronomy 4 and verse 1. It reads, now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you for to do them, that ye may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God, God of your fathers, giveth you. So you were given the judgments. You were given the statutes. And he says that you may live. Then it says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Don't add to the word. Don't take away from the word. Verse 5. It says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. But what nation is there so great, who have God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for? See, like I said earlier, they would say, this is a wise people. See, he was that tower. You're talking about God in the midst of a people, getting the instruction directly from God. We're not talking about some people who worship in trees. We're not talking about people that are worshiping the sun. We're not talking about people who have all these phallic symbols in nature to explain nature. We're talking about a people who came, or who God came to a people. Same God that created nature, that created all things, came to this people and showed them what they should do. This is why he was expecting righteousness. This is why he was expecting good grapes. So they would say, the people would say, and what nation is there so great, verse 8, that hath statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I set before you this day? No nation. Only you have I known about the nations of the earth. And he says, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquity. Let's go to Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter. To find out whether or not Israel wasn't producing grapes. This is Jeremiah 2 and verse 21. Jeremiah 2, and we'll pick it up in verse 21. And I just want to read it here. It says, yet have I planted thee a noble vine. See, he's still again talking to Israel. I planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant, as a strange vine unto me? So you turned into a strange vine. How did you do this? He says something. He says, for though thou wash thee with a niter, or lye, like you have in soap. It says, and take thee much soap, yet thine iniquity is marked before me, saith the Lord God. See, your sin is the problem. Your sin is your obstruction. Then it says, how canst thou say I am not polluted? See, how you not going to say you're not polluted? He tells you what you done. He said, it says, I have not gone after. How can you say I've not gone after Baalim? Because you worshiping false gods. That's the direct offense that his people, you got to understand, he brought these people a slave out of bondage. He gave them freedom, and he gave them a constitution, which is the Torah in the instruction. Gave them land, gave them all that they would need, and they turned their back on God. So he said, you become a degenerate. And he said, how can you say you're not polluted? I'm not going after Baalim. Then he likened Israel to an animal in the heat that is just looking for any mate. So it was with Israel. They were looking for any false god they could worship. They would worship. He says in verse 24, as a wild ass used to the wilderness that snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure in her occasion, who can turn her away? When she's in heat, anybody can have her. That's how Israel was, in heat for false gods. It says, all that they that seek her will not weary themselves. In her month they shall find her. That's just what Israel was like. Just going after Baalim, Ashtoreth. Tammuz, Molech, all of these false gods in their iniquity. Let's go to Jeremiah 12th chapter. Because we want to find out ultimately that this vineyard is destroyed. This is Jeremiah 12th chapter, verse 7. And we're going to find out what the main problem is. This is Jeremiah 12th chapter and verse 7. It says, I have forsaken mine house. I have left mine heritage. I have given the dearly beloved of my soul into the hand of her enemies. See, Israel is going to be put in the hands of her enemies because of sin. And we're going to find out who's directly responsible. It said, my heritage is unto me as a lion in the forest. It cries out against me, therefore I have hated. You don't want to be hated by God because God has all the power. But verse 9 it says, my heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field, come to devour. It's just like us today. Everywhere we go, amongst any people, we are persecuted. We are scorned. And then he said, he called the beast to come and to devour this people because this is a destroyed people. And he tells you again, who is directly responsible? Who destroyed his vineyard? It says in verse 10, many pastors have destroyed my vineyard. The pastors are the problem. The pastors are the ones, when they saw the servants coming, would beat some, kill some, stone some. These are the ones who perpetuate the problem. These are the ones who do not instruct people. If you think about how many churches we have, even right now in our communities today, in our communities, we have per capita, I would say, more churches than any other group of people. So if you have all these churches, you have all these pastors, why do you have so much iniquity and immorality amongst our people? It is because the pastors are not preaching against sin. The pastors are not holding you to a standard. You go to a Christian church today and they tell you that the law is done away with. You are not under the law, brother. You're under grace. Not understanding that that is referring to the penalty of the law. And it sounds good to ones that have an itching ear. They want to hear that. They want to hear that you don't have to keep the law of God, because if you have to be obedient unto God, that means you have to bring your wretched flesh into the subjection of the Torah or the instruction that God gave. And people don't want to do that. It's much easier to get an emotional high in a church. It's good to praise God, but praise him with understanding. It's good to sacrifice, but obedience is better than sacrifice. But see, these men and even women who call themselves pastors, preachers, teachers, and apostles, they are making merchandise of the people. They are wolves in sheep's clothing, leading the flock astray, leading them down a path of destruction, even not just to eternal damnation, but even in their very lives, not preaching against sin, not setting a stand, not holding the line with the law of God. Therefore, they bring you pain and anguish and turmoil in your life. Right now, you walk out of those churches, out of those graves, out of those cemeteries, out of those hellholes, out of those rat traps, out of those roach motels you call Christian churches. You walk out of them and you walk right onto the sidewalk and you see abandoned buildings. You see crime run amok. You see all kinds of sexual immorality in the church, outside of the church, on the streets, amongst your community, in your family. Where are the preachers that are supposed to be preaching against sin? That's why you're destroyed. My pastors have destroyed my vineyard. They have trodden my portion underfoot. They have made my pleasant portion a desolate wilderness. That's what they've done. They have made it desolate, and being desolate, it mourneth unto me. The whole land is made desolate, because no man layeth it to heart. See, pastors, brothers and sisters, let's go to Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter. Pastors are the problem. Pastors are the problem. They were the problem then, and they are the problem today. The religious leaders are the ones that have destroyed this vineyard, because the religious leaders are the ones who were to correct the people, or should have corrected the people once they went astray. But no, they help you engage in sin. They cheer you on by saying, yeah, there's no standard. You try to jump off a cliff and they saying, yeah, come on, hurry up and jump. This is Jeremiah 23 and verse 1. Here it says, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastors, saith the Lord. So it says, woe unto you. It says, therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel against the pastors that feed my people. Ye have scattered my flock. A shepherd should take care of the flock. Spiritually speaking, brothers and sisters, the people are like sheep. This is how you can have all kinds of things going on in churches that logically anywhere else would not be accepted. But all you have to do is tell them he's a man of God. All you have to do is tell them don't judge. All you got to do is lie, and they'll go for it. You talk about people with BAs, a BS degree, a master's degree, a PhD, in the secular world, they're on top of things. In the secular world, they have knowledge and understanding, but in the spiritual, when it comes to that which is spiritual, they are in darkness. They are like sheep. The people are like sheep. Sheep will go where they are led. That's why you got so many people following on this broad way. They on the path of destruction because of these pastors. And these pastors are taking advantage of people being gullible, people being ignorant, and people ultimately, because what people need sometimes is straight up, no chaser correction. That's what they need. They need to be told how they out of pocket. They need to be told that if you don't get your act together, you don't get your house in order, you're going to burn in hell. They need to be told these things. Let's go to verse 9. It says, mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets. Oh, my bones shake. I'm like a drunken man and like a man whom wine hath overcome, because of the Lord and because of the words of his holiness. For the land is full of adulterers. But because of swearing the land mourneth, the pleasant places of the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil, and their force is not right. Well, how is it like that? The land is full of adulterers and fornicators. Right now, the land is, you look at our people, quite frank, let me just make it plain. You got 70+% of our children born outside of wedlock. So you got a bunch of fornicators. You got homosexuality running rampant. You got murder running rampant. You have kids that have no direction. You have households that are broken. You have us as a people. Look at the immodesty of our women. Look at it. Look at the things that we do as a people. Look at these things. You should not justify these things. It's like when you come out and say something's wrong or immoral amongst our people, now it's a problem. Now you're the problem. No, Negro, the one that didn't tell you about your sin is the problem. Because your behavior is going to lead you down and continue to lead you down a life of turmoil and pain, and ultimately into the lake of fire with fire that burneth and eternally. Where the worm dies not and the fire is not quenched. That's where you're headed. Because the pastor is lying to you. He got you every Sabbath or every Sunday in violation. You violating it. You were not even observing the Sabbath day, but you want to observe Sunday. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. You cannot worship God any way you want to. So you gonna worship Christmas and Easter and have Sunday worship. You waiting for Santa Claus. You waiting for an Easter bunny. You waiting for Cupid. You've lost your mind. You've lost your mind. And the pastor is not helping you find it. This is verse 13, because he talks about verse 11, he said, both prophet and priest are profane. Yeah, in my house have I found their wickedness, saith the Lord. See, the heads are wicked. The people in trouble. They don't have hope. Fish stinks from the head down. So it says in verse 13, and I have seen folly in the prophets of Samaria. They prophesied in Baal and caused my people Israel to err. That's what these ministers are doing even unto this day. These ministers know that what they're doing is falsehood for the most part. They know it. They know they like, but they trying to get paid. They fleecing the people in every way. So it says, I have seen also in the prophets of Jerusalem in horrible thing. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They strengthen also the hands of the evildoers, that none doth return from his wickedness. They are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. Look at our people. Look at the moral condition of our people right now at this very moment. And that's how we are even until this day. But we got all the preachers. We got all the pastors. The church is rocking. The preacher. Preacher gonna get you killed. Preacher is gonna get you cut off. He tells you something about these that say they are of him. This is verse 22. Or verse 21, it says, well, let me pick it up in verse 19, because there are consequences for this. It says, behold, a whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a grievous whirlwind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. The anger of the Lord shall not return until he have executed, until he have performed the thoughts of his heart. In the latter days, ye shall consider it perfectly. This is why we're on a different continent, being persecuted, looking to the Democrats for help, considering the Republicans, talking about economic equality, talking about political equality. This is why we're here filling the jails. With all measures of standard of living, we are at the bottom, whether it be disease or socioeconomic status. And yet, we're in a perfect position to consider our position and consider our role and how we got in this position and how we get out of it through God. But it says something. It says, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. You have some coming unto you. Back in these days, you had prophets. He said they came to the people, but they were not sent by God. It says, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. They run into the people with a message, but they were not sent by God. And you would know if a man is sent by God unto you, because he is not going to tell you something that's contrary to the word of God. It said, but he says, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel and had caused my people to hear my words, then they should have turned them from their evil and from their evil of their doings. So he would turn them from the evil way and from the evil of their doings. I'm going to stop right there, brothers and sisters. I'll pick this up Friday evening. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for listening. I also want to thank give me a second. Let me find these folks. Because people have been very encouraging. Let's see. It's Sister Carla D. Brother, let's see. Let's see. Hold on 1 second for me. I just want to acknowledge some folks. His brother Micah Yasharal, Ruth 116. Who else? Let's see here. There's some other people. My brother Albert. Brothers, again, a supporter of the ministry. We truly appreciate that, brother. Ridge Fontaine. His brother Henry Buchanan. Buchanan. I'm tripping. Buchanan. Peace to you. And if I mispronounced this, brother, I apologize. Eula Autry. Sharon Glover. Let's see. And it's just some people, I want to acknowledge that we hear you, we see you, and we thank you for the encouragement. And all praises to the Most High if through the ministry you are being edified, because that's the point of the ministry. That's the whole point of it, to teach people, So the death threats you get on here, which is, I guess that comes with the territory. But we want to thank you. And Lord willing, brothers and sisters, I will see you on the Sabbath. God bless you.